Hi, Frank Thacker here, and welcome to the Daily Peacemaker. I'm going to talk a little bit today about conflict, because even this culture of peace, there's going to be conflict, disagreements, different perceptions. So it's important, I feel, to learn how to deal with those. Um, so let me share with you a little incident that happened. It was a while ago. It was before the pandemic. So I was at a house, a party, and it was pretty big house and lots of room and stuff. And so I was talking to some friends, and then I started to get a little hungry. So I said, I'm going to go look for the kitchen, see if I can find it in this place. So I started walking around Miranda, and I went past the room, and I noticed two people in there having a discussion. And it was a pretty serious discussion. You could tell from the intensity of the voices and the serious looks on their face. And so I didn't give it a second thought. I went down, finally found the kitchen, got some food there. They had some nice hors d'oeuvre trays that weren't quite ready to go out yet. So I said, let me sample one of those and see how they are. And I chatted for a while with a couple of people there. And then I went back to the group I was with. And as I was going back, I went by the same room, and I noticed these two people were still there, but their discussion had intensified. You could tell by the sharpness of the voice, the volume had raised a bit, if not quite a bit. And you could tell it was heating up in there. And as I walked by, I heard one of them say something to the effect that you're as dumb as your brother. You know that? Geez, what a, and I have some training in nonviolence and know something about the escalation of conflict. So I went past, and then I started thinking, oh, should I go back and trying to intervene in this before it gets really out of hand? I also was thinking, well, I wonder what I would do if I were one of those two people in there. And then another little voice said, oh, Frank, just mind your own business. So let me stop there and share with you a video that I did with two friends of mine, Madeline Labriella and Pam McDonald. And as I'm searching here, I'll keep talking. I have a propensity, that's a big word, to mispronounce words. And, when I introduced Madeline, I kind of stumbled around with her name. So I asked forgiveness, and she forgave me, obviously. And then, so I asked forgiveness for all you people that watch this. So let me see if this will bring it up here. Let me see, so we go down here, so anybody can see this, and now we'll hit over here and see what comes up. And we'll hit this here and hit that there, and here we go. Okay, my name is Frank Thacker, and I'm here with my two good friends, Pam McDonald. Are you gonna say hi?
Oh, hi, I just wait.
Yeah. And Madame Labriella. Gabrioli. I'll just say Madeline, Okay.
Hi.
All right. So we are all certified nonviolent trainers in the Kingian philosophy. And we've been talking about doing some presentations on nonviolence with the hope that it will help people become more skilled in nonviolence and using it in their daily lives. And also at the same time, it would sharpen and deepen our understanding. So with that in mind, we decided we'd do a series of videos on different aspects of Kingian nonviolence. And the first one we decided to work on or present his conflict, the different levels of conflict. And there are three of them, and I will start with the first one. And the first one is called normal level of conflict, which makes a lot of sense because it's pretty normal in all of our everyday lives. And it involves stuff like, say you and your spouse want to go to Florida, or on a vacation, you want to fly and she wants to go on the train. That's a conflict, or maybe disagreement is a better word. And so you've got the same goal, but you've got different approaches to it. Or say you living with someone and your refrigerator and your washer are both broken. You only have X amount of dollars. You think you should fix the refrigerator. They think the dishwasher. So again, because of limited resources, there's going to be a disagreement, a little, you could call it conflict, I guess. And so the main thing from my perspective in this is that when you start talking about it, you have to ideally tune into your own feelings and also be aware of the other person's feelings, because the goal is to keep this fairly rational. Not saying that feelings might not be part of it, or that feelings are important, but you want to keep it manageable, for lack of a better word, and be able to tune in. And if you feel you're getting too hot, maybe you need to say something to the effect, well, just share, I'm getting a little irritated. Maybe this is not a good time not a good time to continue to discuss it. So let's maybe try a little bit later. Or if you sense it in the person you're with, it's not going to be wise to say, hey, you're getting a little hot over the collar. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You might say something, well, we seem to be lose focus here, so own it as not their problem, but a problem in the discussion, and so just say, maybe we could talk about this a little bit later, things like that. Because if you don't do that, if you don't keep it manageable, then it begins to escalate to the next level. And I think, Pam,
Sure.
going to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think actually before I talk about the pervasive level, just to mention that we're used to in this culture thinking about conflict as a bad thing. Oh, I don't want to have any conflict. But no, life is full of conflict. There's conflict all over the place. And there's nothing wrong with having conflicts. What is not so great is when those conflicts stop being what the conflict is actually about and kind of blow up into something bigger.
Yeah,
and
that's
talking about here, when Frank is talking about, okay, this is a normal level of conflict. We have a disagreement about how we want to do something. We know we're going to end up, we can reasonably commit even to end up on the same page ultimately. And we can talk about it and sort of reason it through and feel it through and just see where we both land together. However, sometimes because we're not always that great at dealing with conflicts and keeping them at that level, sometimes they start to generate a much higher level of energy that then becomes damaging potentially to the relationship. So it goes to the level called pervasive. So instead of remaining in the area of conflict you started with, you start pulling in, well, your mother and my brother, and by the way, last year, remember what happened. And so the energy starts escalating and you actually begin to do damage to your relationship. When that happens, there needs to be some manner of intervention to bring it back down to that level where you can have, a friendly conversation, or at least a non-damaging conversation about the conflict. If you allow that pervasive level to develop into a very high energy conflict, then it becomes an overt conflict. And Madeline, you can talk about that.
Right. I was thinking about when you were describing the two lower levels of conflict, that it's somewhat like an escalator. So you're at the bottom and it just keeps moving up till it gets to the highest level, which is the overt level. And this can do the most harm, because it can be a physical confrontation at this point. It could be, it becomes more aggressive, could be throwing things, or so it's more than shouting. It's more of a level in which one or both parties have lost control. So you want to avoid that escalator that goes all the way to the top. And if you get to that point, you might need help getting back down, either from a mediator or, first of all, walking away, taking time out. But this is where feelings get hurt and issues become much greater than the original issue. So you, at all costs, you want to avoid moving up into the third level of conflict, if at all possible. So how do we do that? How do we prevent our going from that normal conflict of everyday disagreements and whatnot to that level where we might be throwing things at each other or insulting each other? Because there are lots of ways to be violent. It's not only with slapping somebody, or you can also be violent by your language and your aggressiveness. So that's what we're trying to avoid, getting to that level, which is not good for anybody.
Well, and I think my training might be a little different than yours, Madeline, that actually throwing insults back and forth is at the level of pervasive conflict. So you're not necessarily doing damage to the other person, but you're definitely doing damage to your relationship with the other person in that pervasive level. And having insults or throwing insults at each other, oh, I forgot my point, sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in some ways these divisions are, what do I want to say? Not, they're more theoretical than how things really are, in the sense that parts of one level can be parts of another level. So the main point, I think both of you touched on it, is this whole notion of it escalating any type of conflict. And the thing that we're trying to share with you, and also learning ourselves, is the ability to tune into both yourself and your partner when you start to feel things bubbling. And as we share, there are ways to end the conflict right there, from either stopping it or calling time out or whatever. And it's hard to do, because to me, it happens so quickly, the escalation. And we see it all the time. So it's probably the main thing we'd like to teach people and ourselves, is that ability to sense when things are starting to boil over, and then develop ways of handling that. And Pam, you made a good point about some conflicts, especially interpersonal. They might also have a history. You mentioned something about last year when this happened. So I think it's a helpful tool but it's something that we all have to practice. So any other comments?
Yeah, the one I wanted to make before that slipped out of my mind. The pervasive level of conflict is when you begin to dehumanize the other person. And dehumanizing the person is the basically the pavement on which you can start being physical with the other person, which is, you know, then you're doing some real damage that is hard to recover from. So yeah, calling people names, you know, bringing up like really sensitive things so that you know you're throwing that person outside their ability to manage themselves, but especially the dehumanizing part where you start calling them names that show that you're not seeing them as fully human and fully autonomous human beings. They're, you know, to be controlled in some way or to be dismissed.
Yeah. Madeline, were you going to say something?
Yeah, but now I can't remember.
We're all kind of old folks, so we know the memory goes.
Frank, you're fine.
We get to start writing down.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking that the history part of a conflict is something that for people who are married or living with other people, that the old tapes, the old recordings come back into your mind. So I think that the way you avoid or you try to deal with conflict is to try to know yourself better. I know this maybe going a little bit deeper, but I mean, it's great to have these rules. I remember doing Marriage Encounter many years ago and taught you how to fair fight. You know, you had these rules that, you know, you had to keep your hands in. I can't remember them all, but the point was that there are fair fighting rules, and both people need to agree to that, because if one person isn't following, you know, and that is not always so easy. So I think there's difference between long-term conflicts and then something that happens, say, in a grocery store, for instance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good point.
So it's deep. I mean, this is deep. It's not. It sounds so simple. 3 types of conflict. But it really, you know, there's so much about personalities and old stories and feelings of whatever. You know, it's like if you know somebody has a weakness and you use that against them, like you're saying, Pam, like this person's been wounded in some way, and you keep hitting that wound.
Oh yeah, there's a real skill at damaging the other person.
Yeah. So knowing the conflict, but also knowing yourself.
Important. Yeah. Good points. So I don't know that, I guess you could, we could talk about this forever, but maybe there's enough here to wrap it up and to let people know if they want to engage with us or have us do some more presentation. So here I am back, and hopefully you found that helpful. Some good points raised. Conflict is not a bad thing. It is, and it sometimes can lead to even a deeper understanding on both people's parts. It's really helpful if you're involved in a conflict to really understand what's going on within you. And some conflicts have a history, so it's good to remember that. And that video, I think, a little cut off a little soon. If you, we were mentioning that we're open to doing workshops and presentations if you so desire. And best place to contact us is on the website dailypeacemaker.com. I suggest you pay that a visit every now and then, because we're going to be putting a lot of videos on around creating a culture of peace. Now, back to my story of that conflict that was going on as I walked by, and me trying to figure out, well, should I go back and say something? Should I mind my own business? What would I do if I were in that situation? So what was that? my producer just said we're out of time, so I guess I can't finish the story. I'll maybe get back to it sometime, or I'll just leave you with what do you think I did? So we'll probably touch on this again at some point. So stay tuned. Check the podcast out and stuff, and you may find out what happened. In the meantime, hope things go well with you, and thanks for being with us. Appreciate your time as always, and you take care.